Whatever you say.
He's starting.
We're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York. It is the 7th of June, 2005, approximately 3:20 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, your date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Yeah. Anthony Frank Simione, November 1st, 1923.
Where were you born?
I was born right in Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And my father and mother are Italians. They come from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was drafted, you know, in Glens Falls. And
Now, when did you move to Glens Falls?
we moved to Glens Falls about 1940. About 1938, 38 to 39, because my father was a baker in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and during the Depression we lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we came up here to Glens Falls, and we had a heck of a time getting up here too, because we got 12 kids. Got 7 sisters and 5 brothers, and every place we went to find out if we could find a place to live up here, my father was proud being Italian. They would ask my father, how many kids do you have? My father says, got 12. 7 girls and 5 boys. Proud of that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We never got the house. The second place we went to, he still didn't learn. He told him we got 12 kids, and he's proud of the kids, and they don't get in trouble, and we didn't get that house.
Mm.
So the third time, we went to a house, and the lady said to me, do you have any children? And my father said, yeah, this is my son, because I was the only one up here from Massachusetts. We got the house. And we moved in. When the lady came to get the rent the following month, all the 12 kids come running downstairs. She almost had a heart attack. But we had to move because it wasn't big enough.
Mm-hmm.
We had to sit in bedrooms where two of us were and 4 of us were in bed by feet together. But
Now, how much schooling did you have before you went into the service?
well, I was I quit because when I got 18, I got out of sports, and then I wasn't happy anymore. But I went to work. I always worked. I worked in a grocery store, and even after I got out of school, I worked in a grocery store. And then I got to be a bartender, and I worked washing dishes, and I was always working.
Do you remember where you were and your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, I was working in a grocery store right on Lawrence Street in Glens Falls, and they were going to start drafting everybody, and I was drafted, and I got a picture of the whole outfit that I was with, drafted, and it wasn't too long. Depot was right by that grocery store. That's where I left to go to Texas when I was drafted, and I remember going. My wife's uncle took me to Glens, took me to the depot, and
Now, were you married when you went in?
Yes, I was married, and my little boy was Tony was 3 years old, 3 months old. When I came home, he was 3 years old, because I was away 3 years, and she took good care of him.
Now, how old were you when you were drafted?
22, 23 years old. And we went right from here, with all the windows closed on the railroad station, all the way to Texas, because they didn't want anybody sabotaging the ship or whatever, the train, whatever. But we got down there, and we went right into training.
Now, I was reading something you wrote here. Someone asked you if you would, being Italian, if you fought against an Italian, what would you do?
That's right, he did. Some officer called me in his office like this, and knew I was Italian, and he asked me if you came face to face with an Italian, would you shoot him? Geez, I said, I doubt it. How the hell can you shoot anybody? I said, I'd probably go in the house and have a dish of spaghetti with him. And you know what? They ended up in Germany instead. That's the truth there. Funny, I asked a lot of guys, and they said they never asked them that.
So you went for your basic training in Texas?
Yeah, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, those 3 states, and we never saw our guns. We saw pictures of it, and we simulate. We go in the woods and chop some trees down and make believe they're the guns, you know. And everybody had a job, and we all knew our job, but we never saw the gun.
So you were trained as a gunner in artillery, but you
Never saw the gun till we went to England. When we got to England, we saw our guns, and geez, we were proud of them. They're big guns. And we went to Wales on maneuvers.
Now, how did you get to England?
Well, we went over on a ship, and there was about 3,000 soldiers on that ship. Joe Louis was in it.
Really?
Yeah, he was on it too. Anyway, it was a beautiful trip going over, but it was moving.
Did you go in a convoy or single
No,
ship?
no, we were the only one. All you could see was ocean and sky.
Do you remember what the ship's name was?
Yeah, yes, it was the Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, okay.
And we went over on this ship, and you could see out, and we were on the top deck, because if anybody, the Germans or anybody come and attacked us, we were helping the English guys protect us. We were bringing the ammunition up and helping them. So we were on the top deck.
Did you ever get to see Joe Louis much when you were on the ship?
Never saw him.
No.
And you know what? I never saw the Red Cross. Never saw any of them, but they're out there. In fact, when we landed in England, when we went to France, the Red Cross ship was right out there, because they must have had hundreds of wounded on there and sick and everything else, and a lot of debris in the channel and everything. It was kind of discouraging when we first landed. And when we first landed, you couldn't even go to shore because the tide was out. And we couldn't get in. And we had these big guns to unload.
Now, what kind of guns did you...
155 long times, big bruisers. And when we got there, the CBs had to come and plow all the shore right up to the boat, and then they opened up those doors and lowered them, and then we could tow our trucks out. But I thought we were going to the bottom for a while, because it sunk right down, and the MPs were waiting for us and motioned us to, and we never stopped going.
Now, when did you go ashore in France?
No, it was 13 days after D-Day. 13, D-Day plus 13. And when we got there, we never stopped going forward. And we were supplied, really. I don't know, I really don't know what the heck the Germans were thinking about, because we chased them all the way back home. We stopped different places, like in France, where we fired a lot of rounds, but what the heck he was thinking about, because we were chasing him back, and he was losing on the Russian front too, because we were helping the Russians.
Now, when you landed, do you remember what beach you landed at?
Utah,
Utah?
something like that, right next to the main beach. And like I said, the tide was out, so we had to get dirty up there, and the CBs made it so we could pass, and we went like heck. We never stopped moving. There were places in France, you know, really the most discouraging thing I ever saw in the war was I was driving a 3/4-ton truck, and I looked to the left of me, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It must have been 500 dead GIs on top of each other, piled like cordwood. What a sight. That was the worst sight I ever saw. I saw guys dead in the tanks, in the snow with their hands and their bodies. But that sight was the worst sight. Couldn't they cover it? I mean, couldn't they cover it with a canvas or something? They piled them GIs on the trucks, about 500 of them. And they had to step all over them to pile them. It was a mess.
Yeah.
And then the other worst time I thought I was going to die was when the war was over and I was coming home on the Liberty ship. The Liberty ship was small. And every time a wave went up, I thought I was going to heaven. Honest to God, all I saw was sky. And all of a sudden the wave went down, and Jesus, I thought I was going to hell. Quicker than hell. I couldn't sick, I thought I was gonna die, really. In fact, I was wishing I would die, because I got awful sick. Phew. And when we came home, we landed Virginia, maybe. And they surprised us, because they had all you could see was the shore, but they wanted to surprise us, so when we got close to the shore, the land would open up. The land would open up and these big guns would come right out of the ground, and they were, if we were enemies, we'd have got it. But that was a nice sight there. And then that's where we got mustered out, Fred.
Could you tell us a little bit about some of the action that you saw while you were in?
Well, like I said, a lot of little towns, if they, in front of churches or in a cemetery, the Germans would be hiding there. And we never destroyed anything unless we had to. And we had to these times because they were hiding in the church and they were hiding behind tombstones. So a lot of them were wrecked because they were hiding behind it. So we had to destroy them. And churches and all. Sometimes we go into churches to pray, and there wouldn't be no roof on it, but the priest would be there, or the GI priest would be there. Sometimes we'd have a jeep out in the fields, and if you had time to receive communion, we didn't commit no sins or nothing, but we go and receive communion and like that. But
now, what did you do when you were in a battery? What did you do?
yeah, well, in the first place, I was #1 man on this gun section. But then later, during the war, they made me sergeant, and I was in charge of we never had 15 men. Supposed to have 15 men to a gun section. We're lucky if we had 8 of us, but we could handle it. We still handle it good. And I'll never forget, one guy was a big bruiser, and he was slow, but he was the best man on that gun. He won carrying the shells up. Usually you carry the shell, 2 guys would carry the shells in a carriage. When we got in combat, this one guy carried it up and pushed it right in the tube. And you didn't have to have a rammer to ram it either, because that was we trained like that, but we never used it. And then, I'll tell you something else, he wanted to be #1 man. He asked me, Sergeant Simione, can I be #1 man? I let him be #1 man. What the hell? And then I carried the shell up. Geez, the first round he fired, I thought he knew better. In the States, we used a string to pull the lanyard. It'd be like half a mile long. But when we got in combat, it was only a foot long. That's all we wanted. We didn't want to get tangled up in it or anything. And we had a little, he asked me to be #1 man. I said, why not? Because we got along good. And so he opened up that breech. I showed him how to open it. You put the primer in there, the fuse, then you shut the breech and lock it and get ready for the command fire. Geez, guess what he did? He ready to fire, and everything was nice. He knows his job. When it's ready to fire, he pulled the lanyard, and Jesus, that tube hit him right in the head, and Jesus, he went up in the air, somersaults, and boom, right in the snowbank. I thought he was dead. When they called the MP, or the medics right away quick, they turned him over. Gee, the blood was coming out of his head and went right in the snow. And he started waking up, and he started going like this. I thought he was dead. He had to be dead. And he come out of it, and I always wanted to see him ever since, because I felt like it was my fault to let him be #1 man. But, geez, I wish I never gave it to him. But I never saw him after that. They took him away, because once the guys are wounded, we never see him anymore. We get replacements. And I never saw him after that. But I know I don't know if he's alive or not, but I always wanted to see him. And I asked different guys that I met in the Army. Geez, they never heard of him. They don't know what happened to him. And how are you supposed to find out, I wonder? To find out about some Army friend.
Well, you could, through the Freedom of Information Act, you could request copies of his service records if you know his complete name.
Yeah.
And we could maybe talk to you about this after the interview and see.
Yeah, okay.
Now, did you ever get to see Patton?
Yes, I saw him a couple times. Oh, yeah. In fact, one time we were at a stadium, and some whack, you know, she had a uniform on. She was a part of the Army, and he took his hat off. And gee, the whole crowd went crazy because he's a gentleman, you know.
Uh-huh.
Usually he'd turn around and kick her butt and tell her to go home. But he used her just like a respected person and took his hat off and talked to her, and the whole crowd went crazy because they knew he wasn't really all tough. No,
What did you think of him as a general?
Well, I liked him because he was our general anyway in the Third Army, and he wanted to go. He had that tank, and boy, he wanted to kick the hell out of that Rommel there, whatever his name was, the Germans, and he could have. Their tanks were better than ours. But you know what? As soon as we found out why their tanks were better, this country was all out. And they made it better tanks. And if their guns was better, we turned around, we had better guns in no time while the war was going on. Really, we were on the ball. This country, if anybody in the world thinks they can lick this country, they better think twice, because the next war, if there's ever going to be one, it'll be all on computer. The war is going to be faster. And,
Now, how did you tow your long time?
well, we had we called it a prime mover. It was like a tank, and 6 guys would sit in it, 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and in the middle it had a machine gun. And the driver,
So it had treads on it.
yeah, it had iron track, just like a tank, and it goes about 35 miles an hour. And one time, some General Brown said, we were in an area where the Germans came at night and dropped flares. They must have knew where we were. They dropped flares, and it was just like a football field. They knew, and they come down scraping the hell out of it. So this guy in the back, whoever he was, said, "Hey, this is General Brown. Get them vehicles out of there." Geez, that's all he had. Somebody had to say something because I didn't know what the hell to do. And I jumped over this bank and got into that tractor, and I knew how to start it. And we went out of there, and our captain was on. They had hedgerows. You know, we followed the hedgerows. We didn't go in the middle of the fields and sow our tracks. So we used the hedgerows. And our captain said, "Where the hell do you think you're going with that?" I said, "Well, there's a General Brown said, get him out of there." So then he said, "Go." He didn't know what road to send us, but I took a left-hand turn. And let me tell you something, I was scared. I was so scared I had to go to the bathroom. I mean it, I had to go, and I put myself like up against a tree because I didn't want to get hit in the back. Wow, it was scary a lot of times, and there were times when you could hear the bullets or the shrapnel go in the bank right next to you. Hey, it wasn't my number. I could hear them.
So you were never wounded?
No, never wounded.
Any other stories about Patton? You said you saw him a few times.
Well, I saw him a couple times. Once they had another big meeting. He wanted to straighten out all the Army and not to be scared, because he used the expression, "You even have to hit him with a sack of shit." He said, "Don't be afraid of him." That's the expression he used. And I liked him, really. I didn't see much of him because he was in the tanks. I was in the artillery. And a lot of times we were in the artillery, we had to call the tanks to get in front of us, because the enemy, the Germans, were shooting shells at us, and we didn't have nothing in front of us. We weren't even supposed to be there. But finally they radioed back and got the tanks. I don't know, I doubt if Patton was in them, but the tanks were in front, and they went in the woods ahead of us. And we didn't hear no more artillery coming at us after a while. But at one point, it seemed like every night we went through this town, that them goddamn Germans knew where our positions were, because they knew like that area like the back of your hand. They knew exactly where we were, and the artillery would come in. You could hear it. You could hear the artillery come in. You knew it was a German. And what are you going to do? You just flop to the ground, and my tent hat was standing up. And when I flopped in the ground, the shrapnel must have blew up, missed me, and I could see my tent fall right down to the ground. If I was standing up, if I was in it, I would have got it. But I only saw Patton like just a couple times.
Now, you were in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, gee, the Battle of the Bulge is we fired more rounds than we did in the whole war there, because they wore the guns right out. Those 100-pound shells were forced in the gun, and we had a supercharger maybe 30 inches long, and it fired them 100-pound shells out. So many times it wore the grooves right out. That's where we fired the most rounds. I guess at that time the Germans were really trying to give us the business, and but we outlasted them. You know what I mean? We had so much ammunition, so much power that we.
Now, when a tube was burned out like that, what did you do?
One at a time. They would take that gun back and replace. When they replace it, we get it back. But one at a time, they take them out. We keep firing the other one. I was number 4th gun section, and another time, the second time we fired the most rounds were when they had the Germans had a railroad gun. Now, what the hell good was a railroad gun? It was on a flatbed on a railroad. Well, this 4th gun section that I was in, they called them up at night. We went in behind the front line, and when we got in position to fire at that railroad gun, we fired till we knocked them out of commission. And they couldn't move. How can they move? It was on a track. Kind of stupid, wasn't it? All that money and put a gun on a track? I mean, I think the Americans really had plenty on the ball. And we were bakers and butchers and candlestick makers, and those were soldiers. When I saw them Germans on TV, kind of scared you, because they were soldiers. When they dug a foxhole, you wouldn't even know there was a foxhole there. They took all the dirt and moved it away. I mean, if you came up to them, you watch out, you fell right in with them. In other words, they were that slick. But we outnumbered them just the same. I was a guard. I was guarding one of my lieutenants one night, and I could hear the Germans talking or walking at night, and I hollered, "Halt!" and come and say here. That means come here. And they came with their hands behind their back, and our lieutenant come crawling out of the tent with his gun. What's going on, Simione? What's going on? Well, he said, "Jesus, a couple of Germans here." So they called the MPs right away, quick. They were captured. They were ready. They were surrendered. So they took them, put them on top of the Jeep and the fenders, and took them away. And then when daylight came, they had 2 rifles there. They dropped them when they got, when I called halt, they must have dropped the rifles, and I remember that. And of course, that lieutenant is the one that gave me my strike back, because I lost him. I was having an argument with another lieutenant, and I said, "You probably want these strikes more than I do," and I threw him in his face. I went with another gun sight. But anyway, this Lieutenant Deming, he's the one who gave me my strike back, and I ended up being a sergeant in the service. But,
Now, what kind of sidearms did you carry?
all we had was a carbine, that's all, a little one. You know why? Because when we started off, we had the M1s, and they were so goddamn big that you couldn't carry them even. Not with our big guns to operate. So the carbine had a little clip, about 10 rounds in them. They were nicer, because you could put them around your back, and you won't even know they were there working on our guns. Yeah, but it was, I said it before, if I had to go to Vietnam or Iraq right now, I wish I had that same gun section, because I had a good gun section. And that same gun, because we knew how to operate that gun, boy. And we knew how to, everyone knew the job, and anybody could get into another job if they want, except poor Gabriel. But I like the outfit. And, I think the Vietnam and them, they were worse wars. The Japanese, I think they were worse wars. Because, God, they were hiding in foxholes or caves, and it was tougher.
Now, you mentioned in this thing you wrote that you thought the Siegfried line was a joke. Why was that?
You kidding? That Siegfried line, when I looked at that line, it would be like from here to Albany, baby. Just concrete pillars, looked like teeth sticking in the ground. And And they were as long as you can see, as far as you can see. What the hell good was that? We could walk through them. The only thing is stop the vehicles from going through them. So instead of blowing them up or anything, the CVs come along again, made a road over, and we just drove over. What a joke that was. All that money they spent, the Germans spent for that Siegfried line, geez, it was, no wonder they lost the war. They put all the money and power and effort and into something that didn't amount to nothing. That Siegfried line was a joke. It, just like the wall over in Berlin, they made them take it down. And then separating people, and now we get over there, we knock the walls down, everybody's friendly now. I think that's why I say anybody who wants to fight the United States, brother, they better be awful careful.
Now, did you ever think there was anything, kind of an amusing story you remember, or something that
Well,
stands out more than others, or?
You know, nothing amusing, but once in the blue moon, somebody'd get a pass to go to town. And it'd be a lot of guys. They'd ask me to go with them because I didn't drink, I didn't fool around with women, but they wanted to drink and they wanted to fool around the women. So I'd go with them in a big 6x6 truck. And so we'd go to this beautiful restaurants in France, bars. And we go in and have a few drinks, and I might have had a beer or two, but these guys were tying on a little fast. And you know what? Nice looking French girls come in. The first thing you're missing, but I follow you. I went across the street to this hotel, way the hell up in the 10th floor, whatever, and I wanted to know where you went because I wanted to come and get you. It was time to go home. I mean, it was funny at first because the guys would be drunker than hell. And when all the guys were missing, I looked at the clock, you know, watch, and I got to go get them guys. We got to get the hell back. And I go to hotels, they wouldn't let me in. So I said, you better let me in, broken English, because I'll call the MP. As soon as I heard the MP, they'd tell me, go on up. So I'd have to go round up all the guys. And they'd come, because if not, they're going to be AWOL. But anyway, I don't know if I should say. One girl opened up the door, and here's this one GI that I was waiting for. Didn't have no clothes on. And this girl tried to proposition me. And she stunk like a dead cow. I couldn't catch up with her for no reason. Finally, all the guys came back, and they were so drunk we had to carry some of them. And we laid them out on the bunks. When we got back to the barracks, with their arms crossed like this, because they're dumb. We called it buzz bomb fluid because we thought sure they'd never wake up. And then finally everybody laughed, and we called the rest of the guys. Hey, take a look at Vandermark. Look at him. He's laying in this bunk like he's dead, but he's just dead drunk. And that was the funniest thing we ever come up across, because and then he'd get up, you know, and he'd laugh, and he'd be madder than hell at everybody because everybody was making fun of him. But nothing really funny. Once in a great while, we'd go through a village, and we'd have to stop. Geez, they decorate our trucks with flowers, and they give us a chicken or vodka. They give us a vodka, and then naturally the guys would zoom it all up. One time we were freezing. We wanted to burn some wood because we're out in the cold all winter. All we got is our clothes on. No, we don't go in the building. And I saw this big garage and looked in the window. Christ, they had a truck full of wooden boxes. I said, holy, this would be good. And we opened up the garage, and they're full of cognac. Full of cognac. So, geez, instead of taking a whole bunch, we took one for every gun section, 4 gun sections. And when we went back, gave this gun section a case, this gun section a case, and they got so drunk that we couldn't even move when we wanted to. Only 1 or 2 of us got the guns in position to travel. And the captain come along, wanted to know what the hell was the holdup. He found out, you could see everybody's, and he could see the stuff. He said, bury that stuff. So we buried it all. But when we were ready to go, everybody was ready to go. We took their shovels and unburied it and took it with us because they wanted to drink. They didn't have nothing. I wrote a letter to a couple of the girlfriends, a couple of guys didn't write much or what, so I'd write a letter to his girl like I was writing a letter to my wife.
Mhm.
And then they would sign her name to it, and we'd mail it. And well, we had one reunion in New York City, and a couple of the guys I wrote never made it home. But the girlfriends were there with another soldier, and they had the letters, and they wanted to meet me because they loved the letters I wrote. Well, I was writing them to my wife, and they got a big kick out of that. And I only went to one reunion in New York City. And
Now, when did you return home?
well, it was November. You know what? It was around my birthday, November 1st, 1945.
Mhm.
And we got home. They gave us a ticket from Virginia where we landed. We had to turn in all our equipment, and all we could bring home was our wools, our winter clothes, underwear, and that's it, and a little museum, nothing else. And they gave me a ticket. They didn't know where Glens Falls was or Lake George, but they knew where Saratoga was on the map. So I got a ticket as far as Saratoga. And as far as Saratoga, I was close enough to home, I'd walk the rest of the way. But anyway, I got to Saratoga, and I got out of the station. I went to Route 9, and I started hitchhiking, and the pulp truck come along. They had a lot of pulp truck going to the mill at South Glens Falls. So I got to ride that far, and he gave me some ride home, I'll tell you, because they didn't spare the horses. Them guys went like hell with them trucks. And when I got home, I played a joke on my wife. I'd knock on the front door, and I could see him come to the front door, so I'd run around the back door, and they didn't see anybody in the front door, so they went to the back. Pretty soon I give up. And I never told them I was coming home. It was a hell of a surprise, I guess. And I took 1 week off. My father-in-law was a construction man, and he said, well, you ready to go back? So 1 week off, then I went back to work, and I worked ever since.
Mhm. Did you ever use the GI Bill at all?
No,
Mhm.
no. In fact, they gave us a mustering out pay because I never took a furlough, because they never had any furlough. They gave us like $500 or whatever it was.
So you never used the
furlough.
GI Bill.
No, the club.
Oh, the 5220.
50
No, I never do that at all.
Yeah.
No, could have got 50-50, yeah. Never. I went right to work right after that, so that was it.
Did you join any veterans organizations at all?
I belonged to the veterans in Hudson Falls and the Italian American Club.
Mhm.
I had more fun there because we played Italian games,
Mhm.
and that was a lot of fun with Italian because we had a lot of fun. We're the war veterans. They're mostly unions and meetings and officers and like that. Pay your dues. But the Italian American Club, I had more fun. I had a lot of fun with them because a lot of them were drinkers, and I'm no drinker. And if I was the head man, if I had the best hand in this Italian game, I controlled all them beers. Be 10, 15 beers. Oh, like jeepers! When you're my partner, and I'd ask you if you wanted one, well, I'd have to ask the underdog first. He's the one that says yes, you can have one or not. And if you refuse it, I gotta drink it. What a game that was, oh brother. I tied on a couple of those that one.
Now you did go to one reunion.
Yeah, I went to one reunion in New York City, and I met a lot of the guys there, and I hardly remember their names even because it was 10, 12, 15 years later.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone?
Yes, I got 2 or 3, and I had a lieutenant that I was contact with, and he had a big farm out in Minnesota, Tyler, Minnesota, and he told me, and he always liked me, always by my side in the Army. I thought maybe when he was by my side I'd be safe because he was a lieutenant. It was a screwy feeling, but it was true. And he told me that if you get home and you find out things aren't the same, because they aren't going to be the same, call me. He says, I'll give you a place to live, a locker to have your fresh meats and milk, eggs. But I never went. But for all the years we've been home, 50 years, I always write to him, Christmas time especially. And the way he'd answer my letter, I'm glad I never went there, because the snow drifts are as high as telephone poles. And the way they had to feed their cattle by helicopter, dropping bales of hay. So I'm glad I never went out there, but we always wrote till the day he died. And the last year he died, never. I sent him a Christmas card, but he never, some lady taking care of the affairs, she sent me a letter saying that he passed away, so I never, like, that's the way that ended.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Well, the service was good. I liked it, really. I don't know how anybody could say they liked the war, but nobody liked the war. But as far as being trained in the Army, United States, I liked it. They gave us, geez, all kinds of convenience, And if you're sick, if your teeth, I had a good Army friend who was a German, but American-born, veteran, always tight-lipped, never opened his mouth because he didn't have no teeth. But in America, hey, you go to the dentist. We had dentists in the Army. He went to the dentist, got all new teeth. He was the biggest mouth in the whole Army after that. He was the biggest mouth in the Army. You could see his mouth open, his teeth showing. He was always a hell of a good guy, too, better.
Could you tell us when and where those photographs were taken? Do you recall?
Well, this first one here is in Texas. Texas, because we used to walk on board because it's all sand.
If you could hold them up in front of you, I can zoom in on them.
Yeah, well, see, you see where I'm standing on. They had a lot of boardwalks.
Right.
They call them. And so we used to have a job with a couple of sergeants. We used to go out in the fields and chop up a lot of grass, sod, and plant them all around our barracks. And we used to have one hell of a nice barracks because they had all nice lawn all around it. We'd have to water it down nights. And that was down in Texas. And then this other picture in my uniform, that was, probably before I went overseas, probably, because I don't remember exactly when it was taken. But hey, you can't complain about the way they treat us. We ate the best, and with the equipment, it was #1 equipment. And when I went, like I said, when I went overseas, we were chasing those germs because we were supplied. Now, the shoes. Some guys had size 15 shoes. Poor son of a gun had frostbitten feet because they didn't have the goulashers.
Yeah.
We used to have goulashers that our boots would fit in, but they were big.
Yeah.
And a couple of those guys that had big, tall guys, 6'6" and 15-foot shoes, they didn't have the boots. They had frostbitten feet. But as far as the rest of the equipment, the United States was really easy. We had surplus plus surplus. It was amazing. I thought about the food. And the only thing they stuck us was the gas when Patton wanted to keep going. They never gave us the gas. They didn't want it, I guess. We were going too fast. They didn't want to give it to Patton because he wanted to go to Russia. But that was a story on the way that they treat the Americans. The GI, the Americans, being in the American Army, geez, you couldn't beat it. They treat us good. When we got overseas, we had a K ration. Well, they couldn't give you breakfast like they did in the States, but we had a K ration. We were never without it. And that stuff was in a wax box. You could have it for I don't know how many years, probably would be good. And you wouldn't get white or nothing because it was solid wax box. And in that little box, like a Cracker Jack box, you take all that wax off in it and open it up. It had a little package of crackers, had a little package of Spam, and a little fruit bar to make you go to the bathroom, I guess. A fruit bar and a cracker. Just 4 little things in it. Hey, that kept us alive, and we were full eating the stuff, and we never without food. And the water too, the same. We had big bags of, and a little canteen pouch on the side. Anytime we come to a bag where it was put salt in it, make sure that, because we used to sweat like crazy. They gave us salt tablets, because our uniform would be white with salt. But we always had plenty of water, plenty to eat, plenty of clothes. If we lost something, we go to the service section, they give us a replacement. But they mark it down, you know, I don't know if they charge us for it or what after, but anything missing, they'd almost charge. Because when we got overseas, they used to give stuff away to the poor people. A blanket, or a cigarette, or something, maybe to get something out of them, whatever. But if anything come up missing, I thought they always charged us, but I don't remember charging. I never had anything missing anyway.
Okay, well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
your interview.
Hey, I hope,
Thank you.
yeah, I hope it helps you with the armory here, you know, and the museum. I hope it's some benefit, and
Yes.
if you like the picture anyway,
Yes,
maybe.
we'll put those in
Yeah.